One molecule helped this man reverse heart disease, get off medications, and walk again after years of being bedridden. And it's not a supplement. Today, I'm joined by Greg, aka the Hydrogen Man, who shares his incredible story of overcoming autoimmune disease, tumors, and even a deadly heart condition using nothing more than his knowledge of molecular hydrogen and clean water. We break down some of the myths around hydrogen water, some of the products that are out there, some of the scams, and how the right system can improve gut health, recovery, skin, and so much more. If you've been frustrated by conflicting health advice with all the different gurus out there and want someone that goes just a little bit more into the science, then this episode might just be for you. So before we start, I wanted to show you my SKOOL community I'm always talking about, but this is where I'm spending all my time. This is where I'm answering people's questions. We're brainstorming, doing coffee chats. I'll be starting a Q&A on Tuesday or Thursday where basically I'm just giving out free personal training. First come, first serve. And this is the platform I'm trying to grow. This is where I want everyone to join who's over 40, looking at getting overall health, a lean body, and possibly some low-level biohacking. But it's not just me talking on here. I've got other people who are into the space who are contributing as well. So if you're at all interested, get in while you can, and then we'll just grow from there. So other than that, let's get on with the episode. So Greg, I just want to thank you for coming on my show. Real excited to talk about hydrogen water from the Hydrogen Man himself. I know you got a big YouTube channel and we'll plug it at the end. I've always wanted to get someone to talk about that because I don't know too much about water in general. We've talked about in my community, alkaline water, structured water. There's all these theories, but we just keep seeing the power of hydrogen water. But it's like, who do you believe? There's a million different machines to use and hearing about it on Joe Rogan. So finally got someone to come on my show. As my audience always knows, we'd like to get to know you first. If you give us a quick bio of how you even got into this and maybe some of your story, and we'll get into some of the fun hacks with water.
And definitely all hydrogen water is not created equal. I am a hydrogen production specialist, so I learned all the different ways to make hydrogen. And this whole journey started with me getting really sick. Ironically, I worked in the medical field for a little over 2 decades. So I really know how Western medicine works. And I clearly saw the limitations by working with doctors and specialists. And it was very disappointing. And then when I got sick, I was really worried because I knew Western medicine had nothing for me. Then I started watching podcasts and trying to learn from health gurus and all these different things. And if anything, it just created more frustration because everybody was contradicting each other. You'd have one guy saying you should eat nothing but meat. You got another guy telling you to eat only raw vegetables. You got one guy saying to drink alkaline water. You got another guy saying, no, drink spring water. Everybody was contradicting themselves. And so my medical problems were getting so severe. I mean, technically, I'm not even supposed to be alive right now for people who don't know. I had a ton of medical issues from gut issues, autoimmune issues. I had so much inflammation in my body that I was in crazy amount of pain. Most of the time, I couldn't even walk. So I was bedridden for many years. And the whole thing was just really pretty dramatic. My kidneys, my liver were not at their best. I had some tumors in my body on top of all that. But one of the really scary issues was my heart. My cardiologist told me your heart condition is very severe and it's going to kill you. And you need to probably do heart surgery. And instead of listening to all the podcasts and different people, I decided to start thinking for myself. I became a critical thinker, but I also relied a lot on scientific data. So I'm always reading the latest data that I always like to see who's funding these things and whatnot. And then you line it up with common sense. But then I also line it up with the way that nature works. So it's a really big thing. And then I also read some very interesting ancient scriptures that had ancient wisdom about how to help the body repair and heal. I should say today, I'm not going to give any medical advice, I'm not making any medical claims, and I'm not making any claims for or against any product or products. Everything today is my opinion. So I went down that road and it took a lot of years. And that's when I stumbled upon some scientific research in regards to hydrogen. When I first read it, just so you know my personality, Brad, I'm a quirky guy and I'm extremely skeptical. I am so tired of all the promises that people make and all the lies out there. I was trying to sell you some supplement or whatever. It just got to be really frustrating for me. And I wanted to find somebody like what I ended up doing. I found the answers. I give it straight to people. I don't just have a million products that I would promote and try to sell. That's just not what I want to do. You and I were even talking about business offline. I have no interest in owning a business. I don't want to do that. There's other things I want to do with my life and that would consume all my time. After reading the data on hydrogen, I thought this is too good to be true. It must be a scam. I really thought it was a scam at first, but the data kept coming up and my medical conditions were only getting worse. After about 3.5 to 4 years of reading all the data, I'm like, I think I have to try this stuff. And that's where things got tricky because you don't just go to the corner drugstore and say, you have some molecular hydrogen. It just doesn't happen. And then on top of it, do you really understand medical grade hydrogen? How are you going to apply it? What are proper protocols? What are proper levels? How do you get your hands on it or how do you make it? And then you start finding silly stuff, which I tried and I really regret at this point, but like hydrogen tablets, these little hydrogen bottles that people promote. In my personal opinion, all this stuff is just nonsense. In fact, there's supposedly going to be some lawsuit against these bottles already. And I
Wow.
expect to see more. The same thing happened in Japan. So in Japan, they had this huge hydrogen revolution, and a lot of companies went down after they realized the truth about hydrogen. And only a few companies survived. And actually, the number one hydrogen company in the world is a Japanese company. They shot up to number one because their product was actually real. It did make really good quality hydrogen that's clean, no byproducts. The machine doesn't just break easily. So that's when I became very intrigued by that. I moved to Japan to study hydrogen production. And so I realized hydrogen's amazing. Let's just get that part. That's why this is the problem with what everybody's doing. They'll tell you how amazing hydrogen is. They'll show you the studies, and then they'll try to sell you something. You can buy this little bottle. It's like, really, this little, you get these for like $40.
Yeah.
Like,
And this study was used with some expensive machine, medical grade machine, not that bottle. So now everyone tries to get on the tail on that one.
Exactly. And that's where this whole wave is coming in. People think that you can do it for $40. And I think that if people are honest, like the people trying to sell this garbage, they would tell you the truth, and they probably wouldn't even provide it. This is what I love about the Japanese company that sells the best hydrogen in the world. They don't sell bottles. They don't sell pills. They don't sell a million different products. They made one good machine that does the water and the inhalation, and that's it. Super, super good. They became number one in Japan for a reason, mostly trusted by doctors and true hydrogen specialists, rather than just guys on podcasts who don't really know what they're talking about, trying to sell you something. And it transformed my life, including my heart condition when it went away. I couldn't believe in myself. I'm like, this is nuts. How is this possible? My cardiologist is just like, what happened?
So all those different ailments you're talking about, tumors, your heart, everything, all with hydrogen, water, and probably a healthy lifestyle on top of that didn't hurt. But
Yeah, so I had already started, I tried all sorts of different diets, from the carnivore diets and keto diets and raw food diets and all these different things. Eventually, I fine-tuned based on data. I fine-tuned the way that I would eat, but I also learned how to clean water properly. So for people who want to know more details on that, my video 388 on YouTube, all my videos are numbered, and I became a water specialist. I learned every modality of water filtration, what they can and cannot do. I'll give you one example of a guy who's actually a water specialist. He does lab testing for the nation and government and big business. He heard me on a show and he reached out because he's like, dude, everything you said about water, you're 100% accurate. I was really impressed. You know a lot. And he wanted to learn about hydrogen because he had a medical problem. And actually his medical condition is now gone. It did work for him. And then he ended up sharing the proper protocols, proper equipment to his brother, who also had a medical condition. His condition's now gone too. And then they shared it with more friends and family. He's like, this is incredible that this exists and the world doesn't know about it. But I am very big on clean water. And for anybody who wants to know what I use, I only recommend what I use. It's never about the money. It's only what I use. And I'm only about the best. There's a really great website called mypurewater.com. It's Uprising 144K, but those are what's called carbon distillers. I actually have a lab report here. This is a third-party lab testing. And if people only knew the things that were in our water, I mean, I have pages and pages of chemicals and different things that are found in the water. And people think that your average water filter will filter out all this stuff. It won't.
yeah.
And I go into detail in video 388, and it's extremely important to have clean water. I personally believe it's one of the biggest major problems with our health these days is our water. And carbon distillation really cleans the water, and then hydrogen is a gas. So what we're technically doing is we're using the water as a carrier for the gas. That's why it became very important to use super clean water. You know what PFAS is?
Yeah, the forever chemicals.
They're really nasty. They cause cancer. These were some of the levels found in water, but after carbon distillation, look, it removes
All
everything.
zero.
And that's really important. People don't realize it's really sad. See, for me, the most important thing is if I can help other people, that's like makes me the happiest. I want people to be better. I want people to be happy. I want them to be healthy. One of the things that people don't realize is that water affects children the most. I also didn't realize that we had radioactive contaminants in our water too. I didn't know that. Not to mention parasites, viruses, bacteria. I mean, there's so much in our water, and the only way to remove mold, viruses, bacteria, and parasites is through carbon distillation. You're not going to remove all of it through your normal water filter. In fact, water filters tend to get dirty.
Well, I think everyone knows at this point, like your refrigerator filter and the Brita filters, who knows how good they are? They're good for a week.
That's
Who
right.
can keep changing filters out like this? What do you think about reverse osmosis machines? Do those use the carbon?
No. So this is the thing about every water filtration modality in existence. They all use what's called a porous filter.
Okay.
So they have little pores, the water goes through and it's stopping certain things. But what happens with any porous filter is the quality of your water. Well, you know how you'll get a filter and some company will say, replace it every 5,000 gallons.
Mhm.
But what you don't realize is when they show you a lab test, they're showing you a lab test from a brand new filter. What they don't show you is that the quality of your water is going like this constantly. It's
Yeah.
always getting worse because the filter is getting dirtier. When you do carbon distillation, which is what I recommend and I personally do, the quality of your water is like this.
Yeah.
Every single time it's perfect because you're not using a filter. You're using the magic of water. This is how nature purifies water. It starts with hydrogen, which is the sun. It hits the ocean and it begins to ascend or uprise. Through the ascension process of the water, it's actually self-purifying. And so snow and rain is actually distilled water. People don't actually realize this. And there's even ancient scriptures. So I find a lot of stuff in ancient scriptures too. And there's verses like pure as the driven snow, pure as white as snow. Snow is distilled water. I have done certain experiments. Obviously, we have lab tests to prove that it's the cleanest water. I've done lab tests where I will plant food and use different types of water. When you use rainwater or distilled water, the results are amazing. If you use hydrogen water, it's a whole other level, but that's more complicated.
So my local water store where I get purified or alkaline water, I could check with them, but they're probably not using carbon distillation. They're using what everyone else is using, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, they tend to use like reverse osmosis, some UV light stuff.
Yeah.
They do what they can. Now, here's the difference. This is when I started doing critical thinking. Somebody will tell you, hey, alkaline water is really great for you. What people don't understand about alkaline water is there's different ways to make it, like hydrogen water. You can make alkaline water by just putting baking soda in your water, and that's not going to solve all your problems. In fact, one of the problems that Japan saw with alkaline water, specifically ionized alkaline water, like the Kangen machines and the water
I remember
ionizers,
those.
the reason they showed benefit at first. So everybody got all excited. They're selling these machines and they're really expensive. I'm not a fan because you're only looking at the short-term data. In the long-term data, they were causing problems for people because your stomach is designed to be acidic. It's designed like that for a purpose, to kill certain pathogens, to break down your foods. You can absorb nutrients properly. As you age, it's a scientific fact, you make less stomach acids. So as you're reaching 40s, 50s, whatever, you're making less stomach acids. And then you start using something like ionized alkaline water, and you're actually suppressing your acids even more. And that's what they started seeing in Japan was issues, because those machines were never true hydrogen machines. And a true hydrogen machine, hydrogen is actually odorless, colorless, tasteless, and pH neutral. So anything that's manipulating your pH is not hydrogen. And if you do manipulate your pH when making hydrogen, you're making it wrong. So that's one of the ways to know if you're doing it right or wrong.
So obviously you're promoting like the carbon distillation is the best to get this out of there. And that's just basically, we're talking about a different type of purified water to get your basis going. Now that you've done your research, what's a simple explanation of what hydrogen water is and like how much do we need to be taken in each day besides just purified water?
So for the hydrogen water, what you're doing, so the equipment that I use, the official site is called holyhydrogen.com. That's the Japanese hydrogen generator that fully saturates the water with hydrogen, and the size of the hydrogen bubbles makes a huge difference. And the technology that they're using, nobody in the world has it. So that's the first thing. And then it also makes the inhalation of the gas. So you can inhale the actual gas.
Okay.
And so that's the first thing in regards to using hydrogen. As far as using it, I have protocols on like video 337. It really depends on the person. I would need to know certain medical data, like if you have kidney issues or if you're on certain pharmaceuticals to control blood pressure, diabetes, because I've seen this a million times. I've been doing this for years. Where if you start using hydrogen, like I'll give you one example of somebody who had a blood pressure issue. So they're taking a pharmaceutical for blood pressure issues, but the hydrogen's helping the body heal. So now this pill is making your blood pressure go too low. You have to talk to your doctor and they usually back off the medication 9 out of 10 times. That eventually they back off the medication so much to where they're not even on it anymore. The most recent example is a woman who's almost 100 years old. She had like 3 or 4 different heart conditions and on pharmaceuticals, specifically for blood pressure, that she had been on for almost 40 years. And they're basically telling her she's not going to make it. She's old. She's got these heart issues. Her daughter put her on the hydrogen because she saw me on a show. And I just did a testimonial recently, even having emailed from the actual doctor, she's off of all pharmaceuticals and all her heart conditions are gone. So he was like, well, this is crazy. And believe me, it is crazy. I still have to pinch myself because it's unbelievable. And we have a lot of proof too. We're not talking like 10 studies or 50 studies on this stuff. There's over 2,000 studies on molecular hydrogen. It's already being medically used in Japan, especially in these university hospitals in Japan. The Japanese are very strict. So for them to get it medically used is actually a really big deal. And it's life-changing. Even my father was a great example. He had issues with blood pressure, diabetes, arthritis, glaucoma, and cholesterol issues. And all those things went away too. That was wild. I didn't really expect to see changes with eye conditions and brain conditions, but I've worked with people with Alzheimer's and dementia and a lot of eye conditions. My father's glaucoma was just one. I've worked with people with macular degeneration, which they say is like there's nothing you can do about it and people are basically going to go blind. Seeing macular degeneration go away. And then a lot of gut issues too, Crohn's disease, celiac disease. It's just been unbelievable, truly, truly unbelievable. And of course, nature actually makes this water. So have you ever heard of a place called Lourdes, France? Oh, you haven't. So Lourdes, France has these natural springs. They correlate it to Christianity or the Catholic Church. They're like the healing waters of Lourdes. People were drinking this water and having amazing things happen medically. They started tracking people because they thought it was not real. And they could see the changes in people's numbers and that their medical conditions were going away. Nobody could figure it out. They started sending scientists to study the water. Nobody figured out what was going on with that water until the Japanese. It was the Japanese that discovered that that water had high levels of molecular hydrogen in it. And that's how all this got started. They started doing studies on mice. I've seen the footage. It's really amazing. Basically, that's what happened. Nature clearly makes this water. And there's more than one place on planet Earth that does it. Lourdes, France is just one of them. There's a place in Germany. There's a place in Mexico. And I believe there's a new one that's been discovered. The point is that nature does this. And that's what they tried to design a machine to do, to mimic nature. And that's what they've done. It's really remarkable. Having a machine in your home is like having your own natural, like,
healing spring. Yeah. So what is this hydrogen gas, hydrogen water doing for our bodies?
Well, there's a lot of things. I mean, they've seen that it functions as what's called a selective antioxidant, which is really a big deal because antioxidants come in different sizes. Vitamin E is a different size than vitamin C, than glutathione to CoQ10. They're all different sizes, and hydrogen is like extremely tiny. Using a normal antioxidant is like trying to get an elephant through your front door. Hydrogen's like a tiny little ant getting right through your front door. It can go to the core of the mitochondria. It can make it to any place in your body because it's a selective antioxidant. I've seen it help neutralize free radical damage. It's one of the things that happened in the research, millions of dollars in Japan. They couldn't understand why hydrogen, it's shown to help almost 200 medical conditions. And they couldn't understand how one thing could do all that because they had a list of pharmaceutical drugs that were used for each one of these conditions. I saw the list. It was massive. There's a lot of drugs depending on the condition that you're on. How could one thing do all this? What the Japanese hypothesized is that almost every single medical condition comes down to one thing, and that's free radical damage. You have free radical damage in your liver, you can have liver problems. Free radicals in your kidneys, it's going to show up as kidney issues, and so on and so forth. The hydrogen helps neutralize a lot of these free radical damage. It's one of the main things they believe it's doing, but nobody knows its full mechanism. Nobody knows exactly how it works. But they know that it appears to be an anti-inflammatory because they can see that. They see what it does. They just don't know exactly how it's doing it.
Yeah. And we still don't know the dosage, right? Like you mentioned, getting to know someone's specifics, what they're dealing with high blood pressure or whatever, because obviously there's a dosage issue with hydrogen water. You can't just sit there and pound hydrogen water all day.
There is some dosage. One of the big things is that there's a lot of misunderstanding. First, you got to get a certain amount of milligrams of hydrogen in you. The other thing that I've noticed and I've learned, especially through the hydrogen production studying that I've done, is that it's not just about the numbers. It's about how much you can absorb and actually use that's bioavailable.
Yeah.
And that's a really big issue in the world of hydrogen that nobody's talking about. And that's where those little nano bubbles that I was talking about come into play. Even this new thing that the Japanese created, I call it sticky hydrogen. It's really pretty incredible. And so that's part of the quote unquote proper dosing. The real problem with hydrogen is there is literally not one device. None of the equipment out there is lab tested and certified every single machine. Nobody does that except the Japanese. This one company is the only company in the world that lab tests all their stuff. They actually come with a certificate. They show you the laboratory it was tested in and all the equipment. That's one of the reasons it's trusted by medical practitioners in Japan, because they know it's making the proper levels of hydrogen. A lot of people are throwing numbers out there and everybody's just believing them. They're like, this machine makes crazy amounts of hydrogen. You don't really know if that's
unless you actually test it. Like I just had someone on my show with about red light therapy, and same thing, unless you have like a irradiation meter to check what your product's actually putting out, and half the time it's always half or less. So you can imagine this type of stuff with all products out there.
It's a major problem in the world of hydrogen because people believe all these numbers that China's giving out. I think that's one of the issues with the potential lawsuits that they're doing on these. I've seen their bottles where they claim some ridiculous number for hydrogen, and then I've seen them get lab tested and they don't even make an eighth of what they're claiming. Forget half.
So that's your issue with all these products that are being pushed out there. One of the issues. So it's not putting out what it says. And if we get it tested, you could probably see that for yourself. Obviously, you have to have a machine to get the hydrogen gas in there. It probably doesn't last that long, which is why you have to have this machine to constantly pump out fresh stuff, right? So what are some of the other problems with some of these other cheaper products out there?
When I learned about hydrogen production, I learned that the science of metals. Metallurgy is a huge part of hydrogen production. So you never want to use stainless steel. Some companies actually use chemicals. They literally use sodium hydroxide, otherwise known as lye, the main ingredient in Drano. That's bonkers stupidity.
Gosh.
But yet people are doing it and they don't understand how important it is to make medical grade hydrogen gas. A lot of people make the claim, oh, we make medical grade hydrogen gas. I've learned that, in my personal opinion, after everything that I've learned, that's not true. With the cheap products like the Chinese bottles, all of them are made in China. Sometimes people will have the parts shipped to another country and put them together there so they can legally say made somewhere else, but they're coming from China.
Yeah.
One of the problems is they're using plated or coated metal. To me, that's a problem because you're running electricity with metal and water. I don't know if you know what happens to metal if you do that, especially if it's plated. In time, you can imagine what happens.
Just disintegrates, or
that would be the only logical thing that would happen with cheap metals. But then the membranes too. I've seen lab reports on what's in these membranes. Honestly, it's scary, but I won't necessarily talk about it. I would never use one of these. What the Japanese did, the best company, they don't use plated or coated metals. Everybody's using plated or coated metal. They're the only company that I've found so far, and I've seen thousands of hydrogen machines. They're the only one. I find that really weird. Would there only be one company that's doing it right? And of course, I found out a lot of it is cost. Companies won't make as much profit if you make the machine. So nobody's interested in doing it. The Japanese guy who made this machine, he's got such a crazy story. And I hope that he finally shares it. He made the machine for his daughter. So his daughter was going to die. She was born with a really bad form of Lou Gehrig's disease. And they told him that she'd be lucky to make it to the age of 5. But he knew about the science of hydrogen. There was no machine out there that existed. So he set out to make the best. That's the reason it was never made in China. Even though he was offered the option so he could make it cheaper, he said, no, I'm going to do everything in-house. Everything's going to be done in Japan. I'm going to make sure it's done perfectly. And anybody who knows Japanese culture, they are like perfectionists. And so he saw lab reports on the membrane. So he developed his own membrane. He's got a membrane that nobody in the world has, special membrane. It's been lab tested. There's no PFAS in it. That was always like one of my concerns with other membranes. Metal was very difficult to make. He was originally told by the best company in the world, which was a Japanese company, that it would be impossible for them to make what he requested. But years later, they made a revolutionary breakthrough in science and were able to make it. That was a really big deal. He developed this device and it changed his daughter's life. His daughter is now 17 years old. She pretty much broke all the rules because she was never supposed to live that long. So she's already a living miracle. The thing that this machine has done is just crazy. There's a doctor who is a neurosurgeon, some of the smartest doctors there are. He's also a hydrogen specialist in Japan. He said it's the only machine that he uses, the only one he recommends, and none of it's for financial gain. He just says it's the best. There's a lot of products that he wouldn't recommend. Hydrogen.
Is there any way to, like I mentioned with the red light, there's a meter you can buy to test it for yourself. Is there anything like that to test if your hydrogen water is producing what the company says?
Testing hydrogen is very expensive and very difficult. And there are people out there who, in my personal opinion, give you just like nonsense advice. They tell you can test it with a simple bottle of blue drops, tell you that you can test it with doing bubble tests. I could put my mouth in water and make bubbles.
Yeah.
You don't know what's in the actual gas of these bubbles. That's not a true test. I've seen those tests come out incorrect. That's not the right way to test them. The equipment to measure hydrogen gas is like in the millions of dollars. The equipment to measure the hydrogen gas in water is made in Japan and requires so much maintenance. It's so tedious and so expensive that the average person would spend more money on the equipment to do it than the machine that makes the hydrogen itself. Yeah. And so that's the whole reason that this company, because they're so hell-bent on doing the best when it comes to hydrogen, which is why I love them. They test every single machine and certify it because they know the average person will not be able to. So that's why they do it for you. It makes it easy. It's expensive. From what I understand, nobody does it because it's so expensive. But this guy is obsessed with wanting to make the best hydrogen, so he does it.
Going back to just the overall benefits of hydrogen water, we got the company doing the third-party testing. It's too expensive for us to do. Proof's kind of in the pudding. If some of us want to try it out, we got a quality product. We know where to get it.
Because you won't be able to test it yourself. That makes it really tricky, but that's the reason you really need a reliable source, which is why the Japanese trust this company so much.
But then the main benefit from this is, like you said, it's a master antioxidant purpose. There's no other purpose for hydrogen water besides
donating electrons. People have theorized that it functions like that. We've seen what it does for the microbiome, and we know how important the gut is in connection to the brain. It did amazing things for my gut issues and my autoimmune issues. And I've seen that with a lot of people, a lot of skin issues too. I was really surprised how good it worked for skin issues. It just does so many things. And the truth is the human body produces hydrogen also. And as you're aging, you're actually making less and less of it. Exactly. And so it has a really profound effect as far as how I've seen, because hydration and hydrogen are foundational to your health. You could take supplements that literally won't even work that good unless you're hydrated. I've been getting blood work for a long time to make sure that the protocols I've been doing work. And if I need to modify anything, I do some kind of a little bit of crazy stuff with my diet. And I wanted to know what works and what doesn't. And there's a doctor who she has over 30 years experience with blood work. She's really good. And I've been going to her quite regularly. I remember the last time she called me because I actually got a little worried. If you've ever worked in the world of medicine, you know that a phone call means they're going to give you bad. Usually if it's good news, they don't call you. That's the rule of thumb in Western medicine. When she called, I got worried. I'm like, what did you find? What's going on with my blood work? And then she said, first, calm down. There's nothing wrong with your blood work. And I'm like, why are you calling then? And she said, the reason I'm calling is because I've been doing this for over 30 years and never in my life, she said, not once have I ever seen blood work look like yours. And I was like, okay, so why are you calling? She said, I want to know what you're doing. It was really funny because then she opened up to me. I've worked with so many doctors, naturopathic physicians, so many people to want to learn my protocols because behind the scenes, they'll tell me the truth, but in front of everybody, they won't. And so what I've heard even from this particular doctor, she said, I have a ton of patients and I'm not helping them. She goes, I'd like to help them, but what I'm doing is not working. And then on top of it, she's like, I got a daughter that's sick and I can't help my own daughter. And then she goes, even I have certain issues. And so she's like, I really want to know what you're doing. She thought it was like a supplement. She goes, what pill are you taking? And when I told her a little bit about what I was doing, which I didn't even want to, but she really just wouldn't leave me alone about it. I started telling her a little bit and she's like, that can't be real. She said, especially your diet. She goes, no way, because it's what I'm seeing here on your blood work. And as far as looking for nutritional deficiencies, she said, it's impossible that you eat this way and your nutrients are here. But what I discovered, I didn't know how to explain it at first, but what I've been finding is there's more data coming out about this and it's really new. So very little out there. It appears that I've gotten my body to produce a lot of its own nutrient, which is next level stuff. And I never imagined that that's what would end up happening. That's what my blood work is showing. And it has everything to do with what I've been doing to my gut microbiome. But we look at things very two-dimensionally. If you have a giant piece of steak, you look at the nutrients in it, and you're like, well, you eat this and you're going to get the nutrients. We think two-dimensionally. One of the things that I'm doing based on some really interesting data from Japan is I consume a lot of fiber. I don't mean a fiber supplement. I do almost no supplements. So people know the things I've been able to accomplish are with almost no supplement. Fiber is something that the human body requires a lot of. I mean, just think of a silverback gorilla. I mean, they're eating all these leaves and plants all day. That's fiber constantly.
Yeah.
And it has so many positive functions, including it appears to help the body produce more of its own hydrogen also. And that's part. It's the hydrogen with these high fiber diets that I've been doing. And I don't mean fiber from like bread and that kind of stuff. I'm talking mostly fruit, vegetables, nuts, seeds, mushrooms, stuff like that. And it appears that I'm getting my body's own microbiome to produce just about almost 40% of a lot of my nutrients, which is a lot.
Yeah.
And I know that it's hard to believe. Even I would have not believed it being the skeptic that I am, but the doctor looking at my blood work, and that's what I look for. I tend to look for nutritional deficiencies. And the reason is because we know scientifically, most people don't even talk about it. We know for a fact that certain nutritional deficiencies lead to disease. Just to give you one basic example, if you're deficient in vitamin C, you're going to get scurvy. And the way you fix scurvy is not a pharmaceutical drug. You just have to get your nutrients up, specifically vitamin C. And so this goes for a lot of things. One of my protocols when I was really sick, super clean water, hydrogen. I believe hydrogen appears to actually help me absorb my nutrients better. It's one of the reasons my body's become so efficient and my skin changed. And I had a lot of transformational stuff. The fiber works synergistically with minerals. Now you have to remember food like celery, for example, it's not just fiber. It also has minerals, antioxidants. There's a lot of things that are good for you. Using that combination appears to have done great things for my body. I'm very big on overcoming nutritional deficiencies.
If our body can produce vitamins, minerals, or other nutrients that we didn't consume with whatever's going with the gut microbiome, we don't know anything that's going on with our human bodies. It's insane. In 500 years, they're going to be laughing at us, but we got to do the best we can.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's where the Japanese come in. Obviously, they have the longest life expectancy of any industrialized nation in the world. And it's for good reason. I've lived there now for a long time, off and on. I've learned a lot of their cultural practices, like the things they do. Honestly, they consume a lot of fiber-rich food. They eat so many vegetables in Japan. And then on top of it, they do a lot of fermented vegetables. They do a lot of mushrooms. And they do a lot of fiber in their diets. The data is showing that every fiber from every different fruit and vegetable or nut and seed you consume, they're all different. This is why there is no supplement. I know that somebody's going to try to be like, oh, fiber, I'm going to start selling fiber supplements. By the way, that's coming. Just watch. It's going to happen because of the data. They're going to show you the data and try to sell you some product. And that's the game, even though that's not how it really works, because you want to get it from your food. We actually have scientific studies, for example, where they would study a multivitamin versus getting your vitamins from food. And it always works better with.
Yeah.
It's obvious because our ancestors and their ancestors and on it goes. That's how we've always gotten our nutrients, not from a pill, but from food.
Well, it synergistically works better when it's from a real food. There's probably a reason why that food was created in that matrix. I know different companies sell spermidine, and that's coming from Okinawa, Japan, where they try to find an exact thing that was the reason for all the centurions and everything. And they think that one thing may be it. It's like, it
No,
probably just sounds better if you just eat the type of food they were eating.
you're making such a good point. One of my biggest frustrations is they'll go where like Okinawa, where the people live so long, and then they just find one stupid little thing and try to say that's the reason they live longer and then sell you a product. But it's baloney. It's the way they live. They have a very low stress lifestyle. They do a lot of farming. That's the other thing people don't understand about Japan, because they're so detail oriented. They know how to treat their soil, which is very different than other countries. These guys are master farmers. You should see the farming they're doing in Japan. It's so beautiful and they're so into it. And the soil is hugely important as far as the way it affects the food. And people don't seem to really understand that. And one of the things that I did, having that knowledge, I did this years ago. And recently they did a lab test on my method and proved that what I've been doing works beautifully. So this is what I did. I make these giant smoothies with a bunch of mostly vegetables, little fruit. It's my breakfast. And I need to get all that fiber in me and all the minerals that go with it and all the nutrients. They all work synergistically. That's the reason that food has all that in there, because it works synergistically. Whoever the creator is, whatever you believe as far as God, he wasn't stupid. He made food amazing. It's beautiful. But here's the thing. When I was making these smoothies, I figured it must be deficient in minerals, right? Because the soils are depleted or whatever. So I would take these minerals that I buy and I put them in with the smoothie. I've been doing this for years. What I found out recently through a scientific study on my protocol, this is not the first time. It's really wild that somebody must be watching my channel, because they keep copying my protocols and doing studies. Every time, not sometimes, every single time it's proven that my protocols work. And sometimes they prove that they work better than even I knew. They found out by accident that people were doing this and their bones were rebuilt. And the reason is because the way fiber works in the human body, the Japanese discovered some new things about the human body itself just because of this whole discovery about fiber. Basically, fiber is like a sponge that holds in like minerals and certain nutrients. And there's tiny little microscopic holes in your GI system. The fiber actually gets lodged in there and it's like a time release. So that your body actually can absorb it, slowly being dripped into your body rather than taking some pill. You get flooded with all this stuff. And the truth is it strains your kidneys because you end up peeing a lot of it out. And so this is part of the difference. And plus, the fiber helps pull out all this garbage out of your body. It's like a broom going through your GI, sweeping everything up, feeding good gut bacteria. It does so many things. It's a lot like water, right? Just what's water do for us? It does a lot for us. And fiber is like, well, does it have anything? It's just fiber. Everything works synergistically to do what it does in the body. And it's really a beautiful and simple thing. Good health doesn't have to be that complicated.
What is your protocol for yourself with hydrogen water? Like how many ounces, gallons are you doing versus purified water with carbon filtration?
Yeah. So what I do for myself is when I wake up in the morning, the very first thing I do based on Japanese scientific data is I grab a toothbrush. I brush my teeth for 10, 20 seconds really fast. No toothpaste, just a brush and water. And then I brush the inner surfaces of my mouth, the inner lining of the cheeks, the roof, the tongue. Because the Japanese discovered that we actually grow a lot of bad bacteria while we're sleeping, some of it even cancer causing bacteria. Nuts, right? You didn't think about that. So you wake up and you either drink something or eat something and you inadvertently swallow these bacteria, and it has an effect on your body, especially if you do it every day. So I first clean my mouth, and then the very first thing I do is drink hydrogen water, empty stomach in the morning. And I personally drink 1 liter. 1 liter is the maximum you want to drink because the human body, you don't want to give it more than 1 liter in 1 hour. That is the maximum, because anything after that starts straining the kidneys. And you don't want to strain the body because that kind of keeps it from healing. Yeah, too much of anything is never a good thing. So that's how I start my day off. And then after that, I go and I start making my smoothie. You shouldn't eat anything until 20 to 30 minutes. You want the water to run through you, empty stomach, get all that hydrogen in you, get you hydrated, get everything rolling. And then I make these smoothies that I put a lot of nutrients in. I put a powder in there that's just food, because I know that all the fruits and vegetables and everything else is deficient. So I add this powder. I don't even take multivitamins. I just do this powder because it's food. The website I use is called ishoppurium.com. Same discount code, uprising144K. And if anybody wants to sign up a monthly thing like I do, they can email me. I get this powder called Power Shake. If you've ever watched my videos on how I make these smoothies, I just shove all this stuff in. I make a massive smoothie every morning, and it provides my nutrients, my minerals, my sustenance, my fiber. It just gives me everything, really. Part of my protocol is I'll inhale the hydrogen gas while I'm having my smoothie, just to enhance that absorption. There's a lot of negative things that happen to the human body when you eat. For example, people don't realize that the human body requires a massive amount of energy to digest food. This is one of the reasons, like on Thanksgiving, you eat a massive amount of food, and that's why you get tired. If you eat a lot, it makes you sleepy. And that's because your body's using all this energy to deal with it. So my goal, part of my protocols, is to eat food that's very easy to digest. I use the hydrogen to combat some of the negative effects of the body having to deal with the food. And then later on in the day, I have hydrogen water again, empty stomach before dinner or before lunch. I like to do the inhalation at nighttime. So that's a semi-rough protocol I'm using for myself.
I started doing last year, really separating drinking water from eating because of that issue
Yes.
you mentioned. Your stomach needs to be acidic. And if you're pumping alkaline water all day, that's not the greatest. Your body can pH balance itself in 2 seconds. Other than that, you're just diluting your stomach acid and dumping all that food in. Separating that has been a game changer for me.
You're absolutely making a really good point, which is exactly why I recommend drinking the hydrogen water in an empty stomach before the meal,
Yeah, perfect.
because it hydrates. People don't also realize that your GI system requires a massive amount of water. When people start eating, they start getting thirsty. So you drink the water 20, 30 minutes before the meal, your body's prepped, your body's ready, and then you eat. The Japanese have science on this too, where the very first thing you want to consume is actually vegetables, because the vegetables have certain antioxidants, certain fiber, a lot of different properties to it that when the meat comes into the body, if you eat meat, it helps actually break it down, the enzymatic activity from these vegetables too. It's really important to minimize some of the potential negative effects of eating meat also, because you have to break it down properly. One of the problems with meat, I mean, there's no fiber in it.
Yeah.
And that is a problem. And I know a lot of people argue with me about diet, which I don't like to talk about because people treat it like I'm talking about religion or politics or something. People just get nuts. I don't personally care. Like, people can eat whatever they want. I'm sharing what I do and what I've seen work. I actually just got a testimonial about a week ago from a woman with breast cancer that I worked with. She didn't want to do any conventional treatment, and she did a dietary protocol that I personally do and recommend. She did super clean hydrogen water, and her cancer is officially gone. Her oncologist was just blown away. Like, how did you accomplish this? And it's not the most complicated thing in the world. I have some pretty good protocols for cancer, but I've had a lot of protocols for a lot of things I've seen work. It's really remarkable. And the order in which you consume things really matters.
For myself, the biggest thing is taking in meat and vegetables first, then fats, and then any carbohydrates. One of my game with your protocols would be finish those vegetables first, then go ahead and enjoy your meat, which is fine. I was doing it at the same time, but the meat there's a thermogenic effect of breaking down the fiber from the vegetables, slows everything down. In my world, I'm basically just trying to get the most bang for your buck while you're eating to burn the most fat and be more efficient. We're looking more into gut health and longevity, which is great. Why not put them together?
Yes. Yes, absolutely. I think the way you do it will work fine. I'm not against meat or anything, though based on data, the body can only break down so much.
Yeah.
And so the data that I've seen is you wouldn't want to eat meat more than once a day. So you shouldn't have it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. The next day, if you can go without any meat or egg products, then the next day you do it again. There's a lot of benefit to it. They've seen, because what they do is they've looked at what's called undigested proteins, and it's dirty. And your blood, it's so important to keep it clean. This is part of my protocols too, is what's in your blood is just crazy important because it's carrying nutrients throughout the body. And you want it to be clean. You want it to be you want it to be oxygenated, but you also want it full of hydrogen, by the way. And hydrogen really helps with the pH of the blood, which I don't know if you've heard pH standing for potential hydrogen. And it's really, really good at helping the pH balance of the blood. There's been really good evidence already. Anybody can Google this. Eating vegetables is proven to help oxygenate the blood, and hydrogen really helps. Remember, we're already breathing in 21% oxygen. A lot of times it's not that you need more oxygen. People love supplementing oxygen, but people should read more about that, because although there's benefits, there's a lot of negative side effects to it if you use it incorrectly. Oxygen is technically toxic. Ask any deep sea diver. They can't use almost any oxygen in their tanks because they'll kill them. It's poison. And they actually use hydrogen and helium, which is a form of hydrogen, basically. So people don't really understand all this stuff. I try to make it very clear, but it's really important to me to keep my blood clean. It's one of the things I work on a lot, and it transformed a lot of things, including my skin. I had a lot of skin problems. I had a lot of acne and just skin issues, and it was a game changer. I went through so many skin doctors. Nobody ever helped. It wasn't until I got sick and started changing the hydrogen water with clean in my diet, and then my skin cleared up. I was like, oh my God, all these years of suffering with skin issues. And so it's wild.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. You got to take health into your own hands, and you saw at an early age, like, I need to do something different, and your journey took you to where you are now. That's why I love hearing from other people and taking stuff and adding it to my own program as well. So, but Greg, is there any final thoughts you want to put out there before we get into your YouTube channel and other things you want to promote?
Yeah, I mean, the only other things I would say is, yes, hydrogen is amazing for your health, but there is some really interesting anti-aging stuff that's come out about it. There's some interesting blood work that the Japanese did in regards to anti-aging, which was really positive. And also for athletic, they did a study on soccer athletes in Japan where they proved, now, whenever you do a scientific study, if there's an 80% success rate, that's deemed a huge success. What they were measuring for these soccer players was their endurance. And hydrogen has been shown to also accelerate healing, typically by about triple the speed. I actually broke my foot recently. They're telling me it's going to take 3 to 4 months, and I was fine in 3 to 4 weeks.
Wow.
I really accelerated the healing process. All these soccer players, it wasn't 80%, it was 100%. Every single one of them improved their endurance. And so recovery time and endurance, I mean, hydrogen is, I actually want to see it be used in the future for MMA fighters and boxers because they get hit in the head so much. Hydrogen has been really good for traumatic brain injury. I worked with one woman who she was apparently going to end her life because her TBI was screwing up her life and she was in such bad shape and had paid doctors almost $200,000 and all sorts of treatments and nobody helped her. And this hydrogen stuff changed her life. The official company has their own YouTube channel called Holy Hydrogen. They did an interview with her. So you have a real person telling you what really happened with her. All those things are important because the only way this word is going to get out is if you share with others, whether you have a mother or a father. I get a lot of people email me who are the children of their parents have issues. I obviously helped my parent. My mom was a skeptic, just like me. She came from an educational background. She was a professor at the university, and she was so skeptical about this stuff. But after she saw the results from my father, she got on it and started getting her results. And now she's in love with hydrogen. She's like, I can never be without it. When she's without it for a while, she complained and funny. And so it's a very transforming molecule. I haven't even gone into the spiritual side effect part of it, which I won't go into detail today, but I think in the future, people will learn more about it and how it even had certain things in regards to like even down to the pyramids of Giza and stuff like that. It's really wild that the ancients knew about hydrogen.
Wow.
There's no doubt.
There's so much stuff, with ancient civilizations that just time and we didn't have proper ways to record this stuff, but
Yes.
we got what we got.
The knowledge of water is a sacred thing. It's blown my mind, and that's why I do what I do. Thanks for having me and allowing me to share this with everybody.
Absolutely. Well, Greg, tell us about where you want to push my audience to. Obviously, your YouTube channel, anything else, your websites?
What would be really great, all I tell people is, look, if you really want to support what I'm doing, it's free. I don't ask for money or anything. My YouTube channel is free. It's called Uprising 144K. Subscribe is also free. Share it with people. Give the video a thumbs up. This is how you support what I do. I recommend going to Twitter or X and following me there, and also Instagram and Rumble, because I've been attacked many times. My channel's been threatened many times. So if anything ever happens to it, that's the only way you're going to find me again. You got the other one, Yeah. So anybody who wants to support what I do, and if anybody knows, like if they want me to be on a podcast or whatever, they're always welcome to suggest me. They can also email me directly if people really want. I don't like to do a lot of consults because my videos are there to help people for free. But if people really want that one-on-one, they can email me at uprising144k@gmail.com. It's always best to include your phone number. And so,
Okay, awesome. Well, my audience knows I'll put all those links that we even talked about 30 minutes ago. You had some cool suggestions of websites. I'll put all those in the show notes so people can just click on it. But yeah, Greg, I really appreciate it because this is what I love about podcasting. Topics out there that I didn't spend a lifetime mastering. And then I get someone to come on my show and basically give me 10, 20, 30 years of knowledge. I just really appreciate it.
Oh man, you're so welcome.